What if I told you that the greatest lie ever told wasn't spoken by a politician, a religious leader, or a corporation? What if the greatest lie ever told is the one you whisper to yourself every single morning before you even open your eyes? There is a silent agreement that billions of people have signed without ever reading the terms, and today we are going to tear that contract apart. You live inside a story. Not the kind of story found in books or on screens, but a story so deeply embedded in the fabric of your daily existence that you have mistaken it for reality itself. This story tells you what success looks like. It tells you what love should feel like. It tells you when to be afraid, when to be proud, and when to keep quiet. And the most terrifying part is not that someone else wrote this story for you. The most terrifying part is that you defend it as if your life depends on it, because in some strange and twisted way, you believe it does. Let me explain what I mean. Centuries ago, the philosopher Plato described a cave where prisoners sat chained, watching shadows on a wall, convinced those shadows were the entirety of existence. When one prisoner escaped and saw the sun for the first time, he returned to tell the others the truth. And what did they do? They wanted to kill him. Not because they couldn't understand his words, but because his words threatened the only world they had ever known. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. What if you are sitting in that cave right now? What if the life you are defending with every ounce of your energy is nothing more than a shadow you have agreed to call real? This is not about conspiracy theories or hidden agendas. This is about something far more intimate and far more dangerous. This is about the collective agreement to avoid the truth, because the truth demands something most people are unwilling to give: the courage to change. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, that painful tension you feel when reality contradicts your beliefs. But instead of updating your beliefs, your mind performs an extraordinary act of self-preservation. It rejects reality. It bends the evidence. It rearranges the facts until the story you already believe remains intact. And you do this not once, not twice, but hundreds of times a day. And you never even notice. Think about how many times you have told yourself that you are fine when you were falling apart. Think about how many times you stayed in a situation that was slowly destroying you, because admitting the truth would mean dismantling everything you had built around the lie. A job that drains your soul but pays the bills. A relationship that lost its warmth years ago but carries the weight of shared history. A version of yourself that the world applauds, but your heart no longer recognizes. You know exactly what I'm talking about, because every single person watching this has felt that quiet ache, that whisper from somewhere deep inside saying, this is not who you are, this is not where you belong. But you pushed it down. You told yourself to be grateful. You told yourself it could be worse. And in doing so, you joined the largest unspoken agreement in human history, the agreement to pretend. But here is where it gets even more unsettling. What if this is not just an individual problem? What if entire societies are built on this same mechanism of denial? The historian Yuval Noah Harari argues that human civilization itself is constructed on shared fictions. Money, borders, laws, identities, stories we collectively agree to believe so that millions of strangers can cooperate. And these fictions are not inherently evil. They serve a purpose. But when the fiction becomes more important than the human being living inside it, something breaks. When you sacrifice your authentic self on the altar of social expectation, when you measure your worth by metrics that were invented to keep you productive rather than fulfilled, you are not living. You are performing. And the audience you are performing for is doing the exact same thing. Which means everyone is watching a show that nobody actually enjoys, but nobody is willing to be the first to stand up and leave the theater. Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt completely alone? Have you ever smiled while something inside you was screaming? That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is your soul trying to tell you that the mask you are wearing has started to merge with your skin, and if you do not remove it soon, you will forget there was ever a face beneath it. So let me ask you a question that might change the way you see everything from this moment forward. What are you protecting by refusing to see the truth? If that question stirred something inside you, if you felt even a small crack in the armor you have spent years building, then imagine what comes next. Subscribe to this channel because this journey is only beginning, and what we are about to explore goes deeper than most people are willing to go. Now let us talk about something that nobody warns you about. The cost of self-deception is not obvious. It does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like a slow fog, so gradual that you do not realize you have lost visibility until you are standing in the middle of your life wondering how you got there. I have seen people wake up at 40, at 50, at 60, and suddenly realize that the life they built was an answer to someone else's question. They followed the path that was expected of them, collected the milestones society told them to collect, and arrived at a destination that looks impressive from the outside but feels hollow from within. There is a Japanese concept called ikigai, which loosely translates to your reason for being. It sits at the intersection of what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be sustained by. But most people never find their ikigai because they are too busy chasing someone else's definition of purpose. They are too busy maintaining an image to explore who they actually are beneath the performance. Consider this. A child does not need to be taught how to be curious. A child does not need permission to wonder, to create, to question everything. But somewhere along the way, that child is told to sit down, to be quiet, to follow instructions, to color inside the lines. And slowly, beautifully, tragically, the most authentic version of that human being is buried under layers of conditioning. By the time that child becomes an adult, they have forgotten that the layers even exist. They believe the conditioned self is the real self, and they spend the rest of their lives defending a construction they did not choose, fighting for beliefs they never examined, and pursuing goals that were planted in their minds before they were old enough to question them. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Read that again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. How many of your decisions are truly yours? How many of your desires were placed inside you by advertising, by culture, by the expectations of people who themselves were living out the expectations of others? This is the chain. This is the inheritance of self-deception. It passes from generation to generation, not through malice but through unconsciousness, and it will continue until someone in the chain decides to wake up. But here is the part that changes everything. Waking up is not a single event. It is not a dramatic moment of enlightenment where the clouds part and the music plays. Waking up is a practice. It is the daily, sometimes painful, sometimes exhilarating commitment to asking yourself the questions that everyone else is avoiding. Questions like, what would I do if I were not afraid? What would I say if I did not need approval? Who would I become if I stopped trying to be who I was told to be? The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, wrote in his private journal words that were never meant to be read by anyone else. He reminded himself that fame is meaningless, that death comes for everyone, that the only thing within his control was the quality of his thoughts and actions in the present moment. Here was a man who ruled an empire, and his private truth was that none of it mattered as much as the world insisted it did. That is not nihilism, that is freedom. When you stop pretending that the external markers of success are the source of your worth, you reclaim something priceless. You reclaim your attention, and where your attention goes, your life follows. So here is what I want you to try, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Sit in silence for 10 minutes, no phone, no music, no distractions, just you and the contents of your mind. And when the discomfort comes, and it will come, do not run from it. Let it speak. Ask it what it wants. Ask it what it has been trying to tell you all these years while you were too busy performing to listen. This is not meditation advice. This is a confrontation with the self you have been avoiding. And in that confrontation lies the seed of every meaningful change you will ever make. But there is a secret still more profound that most people never discover, and it is this. The opposite of self-deception is not simply truth. The opposite of self-deception is intimacy. Intimacy with yourself. Intimacy with the raw, unfiltered, sometimes terrifying reality of being a conscious being in an uncertain world. We deceive ourselves because honesty feels dangerous. To admit that you do not have it all figured out, that your confidence is sometimes a performance, that your certainty is sometimes a defense mechanism, requires a kind of vulnerability that society does not reward. We live in a culture that celebrates the certain, the decisive, the unshakable. But the wisest people who have ever lived were defined not by their certainty, but by their willingness to sit with uncertainty. Socrates said the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. The Buddha taught that attachment to fixed views is the root of suffering. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke urged a young writer to love the questions themselves, to live them, and perhaps gradually, without even noticing, to live along some distant day into the answers. This is the revelation that connects everything we have explored today. The collective self-deception is not just that we lie to ourselves about who we are. The collective self-deception is that we believe we must have all the answers in order to be worthy of love, of respect, of belonging. And so we perform certainty, we perform happiness, we perform strength, and in doing so, we create a world where everyone is pretending and no one feels safe enough to stop. The prison is not the lie itself. The prison is the belief that you cannot survive without it. But you can. You already have everything you need. Beneath the roles and the expectations and the accumulated weight of years spent performing for an audience that was never really watching, there is a version of you that is whole. Not perfect, not finished, but whole. And that version of you has been waiting patiently, quietly, for this exact moment, the moment you decide to stop pretending and start living. So here is my invitation to you. Not a command, not a lecture, an invitation. Let today be the day you begin the slow, courageous, beautiful work of removing the mask. Let today be the day you stop apologizing for who you are and start discovering who you could become. The world does not need another performance. The world needs someone brave enough to be real, and maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. If this message reached something inside you that has been silent for too long, do me a favor. Not for me, but for yourself. Hit the like button as a small commitment to your own awakening. Leave a comment telling me what truth you have been avoiding, because naming it is the first step to freedom. Subscribe to this channel because we are building something here, a space where depth is not a weakness and honesty is not a risk. And if you know someone who is drowning in their own performance, someone who smiles on the outside but aches on the inside, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for another human being is to show them that they are not alone. I will see you in the next one. Until then, be real. The world is waiting for the authentic you.